Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Carers of Dundee Virtual Hub. I'm delighted to join you this morning, especially on National Carers Rights Day. Today, we will be informing you and also launching the Carers of Dundee 2 strategy. And I am Lucinda Godfrey. I'm the CEO of the Dundee Carers Centre. And I also will be here with another hat on this morning as the co-chair of the Dundee Carers Partnership. And I chair the partnership with Jenny Hill from the Health and Social Care Partnership. And also today, joining me will be Joyce Barclay, who some of you I'm sure will know and who have met, who will be, there we go, a nice wave from Joyce, who will be telling us about the strategy and what will be in it for carers and young carers going forward. There will, of course, be an opportunity for you to ask questions throughout the session this morning, so please do that. Any questions relating to your own circumstances, we will try and follow that up with you following the hub. And I know as well there will be useful links and information that will be included in the comments throughout the session this morning. Many people over the past year or 2 years during the pandemic will have found themselves in a new caring role, or some of you may have had increased in caring responsibilities over that time, or be caring for more people than you did before. Some of you, on the other hand, may have been caring for a while already, and that may have been exasperated too. And what we're doing this morning is laying out our plans to you in terms of our aspirations and our directions. But what's also important is that it is absolutely about your rights. And the strategy lays out practical solutions to how those rights can be exercised by you, because at the end of the day, it is not enough to have rights. You have to be able to use them in order to get and access the support that you need. So as I said earlier, the Carers Partnership is a strategic grouping in the city, and they have developed the plan alongside carers. The group itself is a multi-agency group. It's made up of a range of statutory and third sector providers across the city, as well as involvement from carers, young carers, and representatives of those groups. The Carers Partnership role is really to make sure that we are investing in and delivering the things that make the biggest difference to carers. And I know sometimes strategies can feel quite distant to our day-to-day lives, or something that's over here in the background. And I hope this morning we were able to demonstrate to you how we've listened and how our response will demonstrate that listening, and we will lay out our plans going forward. The strategy also communicates to you what we're all doing together, so that you know that there is value, that we want to make the biggest difference for carers and young carers in the city. And that will be available today for you to look at that. It also helps us with our decision making in terms of resources, future planning, and thinking ahead based on the information that you have already told us. It is just the start of a process. We have to make sure that we deliver and it hits the ground and that you feel the difference in your life. And that's really important. And one of the ways that we do that is by making sure that we continue to speak to and listen to you. So if you can get involved, or you want to be involved in developing delivery plans, or just sharing your experience with us, then please do that, because you have that insight and experience that enables us to keep doing better at trying to get the right things to you at the right time. I also wanted to touch base on the COVID work that we did around engagement. And the last time I came to the hub, we told you about that. And we took the opportunity to speak to as many carers as possible about the impact that had had on their life. And we had responses in about 120 surveys from carers. We spoke to about 40 members of the workforce, and just over 40 carers took part in focus groups as well. And I wanted to take the time this morning to thank each and every one of you for doing that. It keeps us on the right direction. And in addition to the pressures and the things that you have going on in your life, to take your time out to do that is really important and appreciated. That work formed a lot of the basis of the strategy and the plans that are in it. And the full report from that is also available on the Carers of Dundee website. In addition, the final strategy was also circulated and shared with, I think, about over 600 individuals and agencies. And there were also a further 5 focus groups to sense check and make sure that we were going in the right direction for carers and young carers. So I'm now going to bring on my colleague Joyce Barclay, who's a senior officer in the Health and Social Care Partnership. And Joyce has been an advocate for carers for many years in the city. Joyce, could you introduce yourself and tell us a wee bit about the role that you have?
Yeah. Hi, I work for Dundee Health and Social Care Partnership, and my role is actually to support planning in health and social care. That involves being in touch with the people that actually take the actions, who work with carers themselves. And that's the most exciting, interesting piece of my work, is actually hearing from you guys. Now, you may not have directly contributed to this strategy, and even if you've not contributed, actually the actions are being taken on your behalf. But we've had a large number of carers involved along the way, and the plans are produced with carers. The next part of it is actually to get that down on a piece of paper as a strategy or a plan, and that's part of my role as well. Okay.
Thank you, Joyce. Joyce and I think, have been around now for 3 carers strategy, and it's important to say that there is now, through the Carers Act, a legal requirement to produce a strategy, but we in Dundee have been doing that for a long time before it became a legal responsibility. And I think, Joyce, it's fair to say we could both show and demonstrate, I think, over the years, how much positive change there has also been. And whilst we still have work to do, we're building on a history of making positive changes with carers and young carers. So you're going to tell us now, Joyce,
Yeah, I'm
about
going
what
to
we've
do it
still
with
to
a
do, about
bit
the
of a
work that we have to
presentation,
do. Yes.
so that you don't just have to look at our faces so closely all the time.
So thank you, Joyce. I'll hand over for you to do your presentation.
Okay. I'm going to make this relatively brief, folks. Quite happy if people want to put in the chat about areas that they didn't hear about or want to know more. The strategy is a 3-year plan. We've moved to the second, there we go. The strategy is a 3-year plan, and the people responsible for the strategy are the Health and Social Care Partnership Integration Joint Board, and it's known as the IGB. And we have to account to the IGB and make sure they want to know that this is actually involved carers and relevant to carers. And the strategy itself says what the direction of decision making will be and how we'll use resources. But along the way, the IGB expect reports to see that as well and to see what's happening. So the strategy is to improve the lives of Dundee's carers and continue to do that. You'll see there's a short 1-page version or a full-page strategy. I'd like you to have a think today about, would a video be good? And would you want to take part in a way of presenting that information that everybody can access or understand. I think young carers in particular would like something aimed at them in video format. Next slide. Okay, so as we've already said, or Lucinda's already said, it's part of a process. It's not just come up from nowhere. And one of the wee phrases that I did write down for myself this morning is, there's a phrase that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So the reality is that how would we know what we were going to do next if we didn't have a formal plan? So it sets out a vision. It's based on information, and there's a couple of performance reports that have been saying what we've been doing over the last 4 years. It's also based on some statistics that tell us that, and engagement and national research. So there's a lot of basis for it. We will continue letting you know what's happening. There's a delivery plan to be developed, and the IGB expect that by a certain date, which I think is maybe end of March, but I might stand corrected. And we'll have indicators to see what's going on and have more listening along the way as well, and adjust if we need to, because we all know after COVID that circumstances can change and that we need to change our thoughts and plans based on today's reality. So the next slide. Okay, there's a vision for A Caring Dundee, which you'll be able to read in the document or short document. It says what you would expect to be heard, to be there. It's a Caring Dundee in which carers are listened to, valued and supported so they can have their own life as well as supporting others. And some of you in the call actually might recognise your own input into adjusting and adapting that vision, or indeed to working on it for the original Caring Dundee strategy. In terms of outcomes for carers, identification is very, very important. But once that happens, we have to make sure that there's respect there and recognition. As well as that, we need to support carers to make sure that they have the best possible caring experience, and that includes the support for the person that they're looking after, because that's a major issue for many, many carers, is just to get that care right, or the first issue. Alongside that, carers need to be healthy and have a life of their own, as well as balancing the caring role in their life. So they're all our strategic outcomes, and I think that's all the slides done. There may be questions from that, and I'm hoping that Lucinda's about to come on soon to share the rest of the discussion.
Thank you, Joyce. That was a really helpful overview of the strategy and what the key things are that we're trying to achieve with carers and young carers, to sort of try and reduce that impact that caring has, and make sure that carers can continue as well having a life of their own. So we talked earlier, Joyce, about the importance of a strategy not sitting on a shelf, or with everything that's been happening over the past few years, sitting on a desktop maybe would be the more appropriate way to describe it. How do we make sure going forward that what's in this strategy hits the ground and people feel the difference in their lives?
I was mute. Okay, so one of the principal ways of making sure that we're getting it right is hearing from carers and having carers involved. What we don't want to do is get it wrong and have people come back to us and say, oh, you got that wrong and we have to correct it. We actually want to get it right first time, and the best way is involving carers in that and getting their feedback. It may well be that their feedback's simply to the workers that they're working with, but we listen to them as well and hear what folks are saying. Currently, there are work streams going on, as you said, particularly around the COVID involvement engagement, and the money for implementation of the Carers Act that the Scottish Government gives us. It's not the only funding that's around for carers, but it's new funding and extra funding to try new things and to make developments. So those work streams are already working at the moment on the things that were identified. There are other things that were identified from the work streams that weren't just about that funding bit, that were actually about making the best use of the resources that we do have. So some of that delivery plan is going to involve connecting with a lot of areas who've already told us that they're concerned about carers. And it's areas like Dundee fairness work that makes sure that people who are experiencing deprivation get the best chance and support in life, and they've recognised that carers might be among that group. We're also looking at the employability agenda, because work is so important to people, and it may be about balancing your work, new work, returning to work, or it may simply be about coming away from work but still feeling valuable and having the finances to cope with it. So we've got some work that's ongoing with that, but the actual delivery plan hasn't been set in stone yet. You'll see some of the actions in the strategy. We're looking for carers to come and tell us what to put in that delivery plan. Also, we'll need carers to be checking out those performance indicators, the statistics that are going to tell us, or the indicators that are going to tell us that we're making a difference, and to come back and tell us if there's things missing or things that aren't working. So that bit actually involves a lot of work for us. We've got lots of meetings ahead of us. We've got the Carers Partnership, but also some small groups, because the Carers Partnership really quite big. I think it can be more than 20 people at a time, and we need to go into smaller groups so that we don't have, for instance, children and education services colleagues in meetings that are maybe about older carers, because they then switch off and their time's not best used, and vice versa. And that we'll have to plan ahead to make sure those groupings are right, and there'll be a record of that as well.
That's great, Joyce. And you mentioned there, and we both have throughout this morning's session, how important it is that people do get involved. And sometimes that can be daunting, or sometimes people aren't sure how they can go about that. And I suppose what I would say to anybody who is listening this morning is, if you are involved with an agency or involved with the Care Centre, please speak to somebody there about that. You can, of course, email the Carers of Dundee email address and indicate that you are interested, and we'll be in touch with you about that. We'll also be doing much more regular updating on the Carers of Dundee website on the progression of the strategy, how we're doing, where we're investing our resources, and ways and opportunities that you can also get involved. So please do use that opportunity where you can, because as I said earlier, it's your experience and your insights that will help us to understand what it is that we need to do better going forward. So please take that opportunity.
I'm just thinking there, Lucinda, too, that it's important for anyone watching this to know that this is not about Dundee Carers Centre alone. We get a lot of support from Dundee Carers Centre, but if you're involved with another agency and getting your support there, whether it's Penumbra or Alzheimer's or Parent to Parent, they're all involved in the partnership. And sometimes people are getting carer support perhaps from an agency that specialises in supporting people of a particular condition. They come back in with us. The Royal Voluntary Service are involved. So the partnership's quite broad, and it doesn't mean to say that you can't become involved if you're supported by either one of those agencies, none of those agencies, or supported by the staff that look after the person that you're also caring for.
Absolutely. And you might be not in contact with any agency at all, but you can still get involved in shaping those plans as well. Thanks for that, Joyce. I just want to check if we've got any questions at all. No, not as yet. Well, as I said, the Carers of Dundee email address is there, so please use it, either to ask a question or if you want to get involved and know more about what's happening, we would absolutely welcome that. So I think, Joyce, it's just for us now to officially launch.
Yeah. Can I just put in another comment before we go?
Yes.
And it's really to say that we've had to use online for a lot of things. Some things it's actually worked out better to it, but just to reassure the people who are watching online that actually there are ways of becoming involved without that. And
Yes,
as we hope that restrictions will be lowered, people will be looking for safe ways to connect with carers in their own local areas or down at Carer Centre or with their organisation. So not everything's online will allow you a chance to have your piece face-to-face with folks too.
Yes, and thankfully we're able to do more of that at the minute anyway. We just have to keep seeing what the situation is and how it changes. So Joyce, will we do our official bit now? So alongside Joyce this morning, and of course on behalf of the Carers Partnership and all the other people who have been involved in the development of the strategy, here it is, officially launched. And I think it definitely does mark our commitment to undertake the actions that need to be done in it to improve the situation for carers and young carers across the city and the people that they are supporting. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank every single person who has been involved in the development of the strategy. It was a lot of work that was well invested, and we couldn't have done it without all of those people. It was certainly not a one-person job. So thanks to everybody who has been involved in that.
I thought we were going to have music.
Well, you know, you can maybe sing us a song, Joyce, if you want, or we can just move swiftly on.
Swiftly on.
Okay. So before we finish up this morning, it's important that I remind people of the other things that are happening for National Carers Rights Day. So there is a Q&A with Citizens Advice Bureau at 2:00, and that will be taking place on the hub as well. And we have a bite-sized carers' rights session, which will be delivered by the group work team at the centre and the Coalition for Carers in Scotland. And you can find out more about that. And I think Sheila's going to put a link in the chat so that you can see how to register for that if you want to, because that's between 1 and 2. And I think there are still some places available on that as well. And the Carers of Dundee website, of course, will have the Carers Rights Day page, which has lots of other useful information in that about carers' rights and other things that are happening that you might want to take up today. And of course, the Carers of Dundee website will have other information helpful to you in your caring role beyond Carers Rights Day. And there's a really excellent resource for carers and professionals. So please make use of that where you can. So we're going to finish up now. Joyce, do you have any final comments before I finish us off?
Just really to thank people for joining us, and thanks for all their input over time. I think that folks quite often feel frustrated when they're given their views about things that maybe nothing's happened as a result. We have lots of evidence that things have happened, and we can't change the past, but we can change the future. So if we all work together. And thank you all very much for your involvement and just for listening today. Okay.
Thank you, Joyce. And I would just echo Joyce's comments there in thanking you for joining us today, and also thanking Joyce for being on the hub with me this morning. Thank you, Joyce. And just as well as a final note to people, remember that there are supports and services out there for you if you're caring, and if you need support, help or information, please do reach out for that at this time or any time, and there'll be information on the website where you can find out what would be most helpful for you as well. So as Joyce says, thank you to everybody who's involved in the strategy, and we will look forward to coming back to tell you how we're getting on with it. So thank you.